Well, it happened. Something we've been talking about on this channel since early January and dating back to my Patreon update on January 4th. It happened. Vic Fangio is out as defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. Man, we got a lot to go over with this. So let's get into it. Smash the like button as the offseason has just begun and it's just starting to get fun. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Let's go ahead. Let's get into this. We got a lot to talk about.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown! Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. I've got Neal Driscoll here with me. He's on the road, and EMdolphinfan should be joining us any minute as well. Huge news out of Miami. I mean, I will just fill all of you in. I mean, it's big time stuff right now. So it's something we've been talking about. If you remember, if you're a Patreon, I had a Patreon update on January 4th. I had a 3 takes episode, and we talked about this potentially happening, and the day has come. Even after NFL insider Ben Albright, he got it totally wrong on this one. He told everyone he was staying on my timeline. That turns out not to be correct, as the Dolphins and Vic Fangio have mutually parted ways. Sources told Schefter and Jen Fowler, ESPN, Fangio will now be the top target for the Philadelphia Eagles to hire as their defensive coordinator, and a deal is expected. Miami is allowing Fangio to leave to be closer to his family in Pennsylvania. Fangio and the Eagles had an interest in working together in 2023, but the timing didn't work. This time it will, and it wasn't about timing. It was because they got caught up in that whole scandal with the Jonathan Gannon thing, right? They got caught tampering, and so he couldn't go there. Remember, this is why he was asked this directly this season. D-Hug All Day says, what's up, Reason? I wouldn't be upset if we gave Leslie Frazier. Look, we're going to talk about candidates. Don't worry. But this is something this is why we're talking about. People couldn't get, Reason, why are you talking about it with Omar Kelly? Reason, why are you and Neal talking about this? Reason, why am I hearing the local media talk about this? This is because this was always the real deal. If you go back, if you're a Patreon member, this is why I tell y'all to sign up for the Patreon. I'm talking to multiple people. Neal talking to multiple people. Multiple things were basically told that Fangio, hold your horses. He's not necessarily a long-term solution. We had heard rumblings he wanted to be a head coach. And I heard, and I don't even know if I told Neal this, but I know I told the Patrons this. I heard when they originally negotiated with Fangio that a 1-year deal was on the table originally. The talks were, is he going to bring Desai here? That's what really started us digging is he going to bring Deshaun Desai here when we knew how that was going? And it led to stories of Fangio one and done potentially. And, I reported it that I heard a 1-year deal was on the table. And now it turned out to be a 1-year deal. And Fangio is now out in Miami. And they both agreed to mutually part ways. And we'll talk about that. And Ian Rappaport, his take on it is this, and he names a candidate. Vic Fangio nearly landed with the Eagles last year, and they currently have a defensive coordinator opening. Meanwhile, former Chargers coach Brandon Staley is available and would be a candidate in Miami. Man, this is why we're all hoping Saleh was about to get fired, huh? Let's hope the Jets fire Saleh so we can snatch up Saleh. But now, here we go, Neal. You're on mute, Neal. I don't know if you know that, but you're on mute right now, Neal.
Yeah, sorry, I'm driving. Don't want to give you a lot of the windshield noise.
Your thoughts on this? Because before we went live here, me and you talked about it. Me and you were having the private conversation starting on January 2nd.
Right. Yeah.
We are here now.
Yeah. After the Ravens beat the Dolphins pretty convincingly, a Ravens employee who I can't name, but he had told me something, I was just kind of talking about the team, the direction, what he thought. And he kind of told me one thing about the team, just, maybe not having enough dogs. I'll put that in quote, but he also had told me that he had heard that Vic Fangio was lukewarm on Miami, that it wasn't an awful job, but he wasn't going to work, happy every single day. And, I think we all knew last year when there was that delay from when there was a verbal announcement that Vic Fangio was the Dolphins defensive coordinator till it actually was. I think it was almost 8-9 days before it actually became official. I think that Jonathan Gannon situation was, playing out, and he always wanted to be the Eagles defensive coordinator. He wanted to be close to home, and that was his job. The Dolphins threw a lot of money his way, and they were able to secure him. And, I think this is a big bomb. It's a big bomb. I'm actually glad that it happened now, reason though, from a timing standpoint, because free agency hasn't started. The draft hasn't started. You can get a defensive coordinator in here and allow him to help put his stamp on some things. And then I think, you've seen out there that a lot of the young players in the secondary, Jevon, Holland, and Cam Smith, are pretty excited that Vic Fangio is leaving. It's pretty well documented that Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey had kind of voiced their displeasure with Vic Fangio during the course of the year. And something that I think Vic Fangio is a great defensive football coach. He's an old school coach, and I think that when you're an old school coach and this is a young man's game, sometimes there are some discrepancies in what you think, how it should look. I was just telling you before we went on air, I don't necessarily think this is a disastrous thing for the Miami Dolphins, because if you
tell them what you told me, tell them what we talked about. From what we're hearing, they didn't really push back.
Right. Yeah. So it doesn't sound like Fangio's heart was in it. And it doesn't sound like Miami fought hard to keep him. And, Mike McDaniel being the ultimate players coach, you have to imagine that Jevon Holland walks into that locker room and voices some of this displeasure. And I think they are going to get younger on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to get youthful. I think they're going to get an energy to this defense. And, I'll say this, the Dolphins defense rose to the occasion in the second half of the season, and Vic Fangio is getting all the attaboys for that. And he, I think his scheme was a big part of that. With that said, despite being down a few, impact players, let's not act like there wasn't a plethora of talent on the defensive side of the ball. Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins, Jalen Ramsey, Jevon Holland, David Long Jr. playing at a borderline all-pro level. So to me, if I'm being honest, the reason that we were in Kansas City playing at minus 27 degrees was because of Vic Fangio. That Tennessee game, that last 3 minutes, I put squarely on Vic Fangio. And I don't want to, paint this as 100% of a positive thing. I do think it sucks that a year after you landed a big fish in terms of a defensive coordinator, he's walking out the door. But to me, man, that never felt like it was peanut butter. Synergy was ever there. I would always say that it's hard to judge a guy like Vic Fangio in his pressers, but I didn't see a guy who was loving what he was doing. And I had seen pressers from Fangio in the press where he seemed to be a little bit more lively. So, for me, it was kind of like The Walking Dead. And that didn't mean he didn't do a good job. It's hard to say if it's a good thing or a bad thing when we don't know who's replacing him. But I actually have a little bit of optimism what this means for the Miami Dolphins more than this being the nail in a coffin.
So we'll get to EM in a sec. We'll set him up here. But a couple things that you just heard, Neal refer to I'll show a few of them here. First things first, here is Cam Smith's reaction. That's an unlock. That's a padlock being unlocked, as if he's finally going to be unlocked. That's what he's saying. And then literally minutes after he was gone, look at Jevon Holland out here throwing kicking rocks.
Wow, kicking rocks.
This man is out here kicking rocks, telling Fangio to kick rocks and going. And I'll set it up for you here in a sec. But guys, we had heard all season, not only did X go to him at halftime when he wanted to tail Diggs early, when he wanted to shadow Diggs early in the season, we knew Ramsey was pushing to shadow when X was out. And aside from the game against Garrett Wilson, which proved Ramsey to be right, Fangio wasn't really listening, and he wasn't even open to his star veterans, never mind veterans. He wasn't even open to his superstars coming to him and suggesting fixes. He was stubborn in his ways, and the players look like they're not too disappointed, EM.
I'm going to be honest. Hey, first and foremost, hey, salute to both of you gentlemen. Hey, man, this is I'm still trying to, I'm trying to process this whole situation right now. This is not the place I wanted to be. We were on the phone when they broke the news, Reason, and man, this is first. I'm a big Fangio fan. When we acquired him last year, I thought this potentially could be, with him and Mike McDaniel, not only for the short term but a long term solution. It could be our head coach like Andy Reid has with Steve Spagnuolo, like Mike Tomlin had with Dick LeBeau for a lot of years. I thought this was going to be a dynamic between the two of those that could take us to big things, not only in the short term but the long term as well. So, man, this is not the place I wanted to be. This is not the conversation I wanted to have this afternoon. But here we are, nonetheless, and it's just you just. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, Reason, when you started. Well, I don't know if I should put that out there, but we kind of had conversations about, you was hearing about rumblings about, there might be somewhat a disconnect between Fangio and internally or whatnot. And I was like, well, trying to figure out what would be the root cause of that, because they made you the highest paid guy in, coordinator. He's making damn near head coaching money, right? You're in Miami, you're in Florida. Geographically, what better place to be in, to coach football? Look at the roster, look at the talent level you have, from a personnel standpoint that you have at your disposal. What more could Vic Fangio want? What more could a coach or a person want? What more? And, I just don't know what is the root cause of this? Why does he not see this as a long-term situation?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Didn't we talk about this on one of those last final post-game shows? I don't think Neal was up there for it, but I'll pose this to you guys. Remember, I'm the one who brought it up too, right? Which probably shocked everyone. But remember what I said? Fangio's probably walking in the building, looking at this guy, joking around this clubhouse culture and being like,
100%.
I don't. He's way more of a hard ass, seems way more strict, et cetera, while McDaniel seems probably new wave, to new school. And guys, is it a foregone conclusion that he's going to Philly, or is he also waiting to see what happens with Harbaugh?
Well, they're already reporting that he left Miami for Philly. They're already putting that out there.
I saw that. I put it up here. But who's to say Harbaugh doesn't come knocking? Because right, what if his who's the D coordinator over there?
Jesse Minter, the old Panthers linebacker.
Yeah. What if he gets an offer somewhere else? I don't know, or if he steps up and is the head coach in Michigan and gets an opportunity to take over for Harbaugh, and Harbaugh says, "Hey Vic, it's warm in LA."
Right. Yeah, there's going to be big dominoes that fall in the coaching search. Just Harbaugh, I know, is in negotiations with the Chargers, and I've told you a reason that I heard it gets done here in the next 24 hours. So I do think that's a domino that's going to fall. And then Vrabel's got the Falcons and Panthers in back-to-back days coming up. You have to imagine somebody's going to jump on him. And then there's Bill Belichick still looming. But I'll say one thing that I think is really important with this Vic Fangio departure. he did a great job. He took a defense that was, ranked at the, at the bottom of the league, and we ended the season in the top 10, and it was good. What he did not accomplish here was elevating young talent. And we saw Kader Kohu go from a guy that was on the rise to a guy that honestly looked lost this year. Yeah. And where the Dolphins are heading this offseason because of their salary cap dynamic is that they're going to have to rely on young players. They're not going to be able to afford all these key pieces. And, they're going to have to get creative. I've watched a lot of Cam Smith, and I know that he's a better football player than Eli Apple right now. Yeah. And I get experience and I get those things, but it wasn't working, and there was no adaptability out there. And I think that's one of the most important thing in football. And, look at and I always draw parallels to the Ravens because they're my backyard. The Ravens went in the half against the Houston Texans. It was 10-10. It looked like they were about to lay another egg. They come out and win the second half 24-0. They made all the adjustments you had to do. We don't do that. Vic Fangio did not do that. And I shake my head here because it's funny that I say the Baltimore Ravens because I see a lot of parallels of where the Ravens were 2 years ago to where we were, right? There was a lot of questions about their quarterback, Lamar Jackson, despite winning an MVP. Here we are with a lot of question marks around Tua Tagovailoa heading into the next season. They had 22 players on the IR 2 years ago. We had half of our damn roster on the IR this year, right? And then when the Ravens had a head defensive coordinator vacancy when Wink Martindale left, right? What did they do? They went to the well. They got a young guy full of energy, Mike McDonald, who's a brilliant defensive mind, and they completely changed the culture of the defense side of the ball. Wink Martindale was a great defensive coordinator. I'll be honest, if the rumor or the news broke right now that we had him as our D coordinator, I'd be pretty damn happy. But
I would too.
It wasn't relating to the players when it mattered most. The Ravens were collapsing late in games. The fourth quarter.
So do you like Campanile and Ronaldo Hill in-house?
I like Campanile. I do, whether I like him or not, I think Brandon Staley's the lead dog. I think Brandon Staley's going to get –
because he knows the defense so well, right? Like, that's one of Fangio's top proteges, right? I'm not justifying it.
You know something, though? Like, to Neal's point about the Dolphins are going to have to go cheap. They're going to have to go young in key positions on the defensive side of the football. Well, the question is, okay, well, if you're going to go young in certain areas on a defense, I mean, do you want to roll the dice with an inexperienced guy? And you brought up Campanile, which is an intriguing prospect for me, potentially, because again, he's had an opportunity to learn under two different philosophies, right? Under Brian Flores, under Vic Fangio, he has firsthand intel on the personnel, right? In those two specific in those different schemes. So, but do you really want
under Boyer and Flores for what they've looked for, and Fangio, what they look for in personnel in their schemes? So
absolutely. And again, he's seen the personnel in two different formats, right? So he knows what works, what doesn't. And again, but do you want to roll the dice? If you're gonna go young in certain areas on the defense, do you want to roll the dice and put an inexperienced coach on top of the fact that you got to go young on the defensive side of football? Right. Considering where we are as a team, right? We're in complete win now mode. So that's
why I brought up Wink, right? Because Wink, he's cut from more of the Flores and Boyer cloth, given our personnel right now and how it's structured. But I think Wink's a better play caller than clearly Boyer was, and understands the game better than Boyer does. I think, and I know for a fact, I know someone who was at the combine before Wink Martindale took the Giants job, and they sat at a bar with Wink Martindale, and Wink Martindale told him directly that he would love to coach this defense.
Well, I know one thing. If they are to, and again, I'm a fan of Wink Martindale. I'm a fan of his scheme, right? Very similar to what we saw under Brian Flores and Josh Boyer. I'm a fan of that more man-principled type of application. If the Dolphins do go that route, you better be sure you have somebody. You better solidify that other side of the side of the field opposite Jalen Ramsey. I do know that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm with you guys in the fact that I like to see Anthony Campanile get it, and for this reason. I don't want anyone to come in here who's full and they're happy and they're content. I want a guy who's a dog, who's running down the alley, knocking down trash cans for scraps, jumping in other.
You see Dan Campbell in him, don't you?
Yeah.
Tell me the truth. You see Dan Campbell and Anthony Campanile, and I ain't gonna fault you for it.
Hey, he's intriguing. He's very intriguing. He really is. It's just for me.
What I see.
I'm sorry, Neal. Go ahead, bro. No, my bad. Go ahead, Neal.
I was just gonna say what I see is a guy that has to earn it. He's got to earn it. And if Mike McDaniel is going into this season and the Dolphins don't accomplish what we want them to accomplish this year, I think Mike McDaniel gets firmly on the hot seat. This team's coaching staff is going to have a target on their back, and pressure either it either makes diamonds or it bursts pipes, right? And I want to see. I think that Anthony Campanile has the type of mindset, personality to stare that type of challenge in the face and say, I got this shit and I can make this happen. And I think he will unlock young players. And I think he fits more the Miami Dolphins identity. Again, like, if this isn't a knock on Vic Fangio just was like that kid at your high school that was 8 years older or 5 years older than you that still came to high school parties when you were a senior, like, it was just kind of like, what is this guy doing here? It just doesn't make sense. Maybe he was the starting middle linebacker and he was a cool guy back in high school, but like, what's he doing here? I think that's where Vic Fangio was. I think he was kind of fish out of water. And like, look, don't you guys both have a hard time seeing there be a lot of positive synergy between a Mike McDaniel and a Vic Fangio?
Well, you know what I was just going to say, bro? Like, think about this. Jevon Holland posts a video after him getting fired of him kicking rocks. And yet Jevon Holland was one of the few players Fangio
exactly. I was gonna bring that up earlier,
the guys
bro.
he didn't praise.
I know, bro.
Jeez, I don't even
I know, right?
I don't even know what they're thinking right now. Like, when you actually put it in that perspective, it's kind of crazy because Jevon Holland should be one of the few players that should be. You heard Jevon Holland on Hard Knocks. Remember, praising the scheme. Once you understand it, once you understand your freedoms and what you can do in it, it's amazing. So he praises him publicly. He praised Fangio back publicly when Fangio was praising. From the moment Fangio got here, there were 3 players he praised: Holland, AVG, and Wilkins. And Phillips, and Phillips, right? Those are the 4 guys he praised from day one. And to see one of those guys, and this is a guy who, remember, he drafted Justin Simmons. Like, he knows his safety. It's not like he's a dumbass when it comes to safeties. Like, he knows what he's talking about. D. Huggis says, what's up, Reason? I wouldn't be upset if they gave Leslie Frazier a look. And Terrence says, man, leaving Panama from a work trip and hear this news. Man, what's the play? An understudy at the Ravens? Because talk about the Mike McDonald thing you brought up. I mean, and I think if you're going to go young. See, but I get EM's point. It seems with the offense. Guys, we're built to win now. We ain't got time for a young guy to figure this out.
Yeah,
we already got a head coach trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Now we want to throw a DC out there. We did it with Boyer, and how'd that work? 3rd and 17 against the Bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Reason, a lot of dominoes got to fall between now and this time, but I will say that the Ravens are poised to lose Mike McDonald. They think there's a good chance that he's going to get a job in the market. So their next man up. They the Ravens do a great job.
He's going to get a head coaching job?
Mike McDonald.
That's what I'm talking about.
There's people that I know from the Ravens think that there's a really strong chance that he's going to get a job.
Wow, after 1 year. Really? Wow.
1 year, half a year, bro.
Yeah.
Well, and just let me throw this out. If Harbaugh leaves Michigan, would Michigan be interested in him as a coach potentially as well? So just like, that's the caveat I'll throw out there too. It might not always have to be an NFL head coaching job, but you have to unlock this young talent. I think, another good thing I think about keeping the job in-house is you will see the likelihood of keeping free agents increase if it's a guy that comes from in-house. If you bring someone from the outside, we can say that Christian Wilkins probably isn't, exactly what Brandon Staley is going to be looking for. Maybe I think Anthony Campanile deserves a shot here, man. I'd rather stay in-house with a young guy.
I would too. I would too.
Yeah, because I think it helps the culture that's built here. Like, if I'm a Dolphins defensive guy, and you're bringing. Yeah, well, I think the names.
Can you imagine my bad, Neil. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, man. I would just say Wink Martindale would be a great coach, but I don't think they want to reinvent the whole scheme. Here, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Brandon Staley.
EM said it when we talked. EM said it when we talked privately too, right? McDaniel's not a fan of that scheme.
Yeah, he's not.
He's been known, right?
Yeah,
he's not a fan of that.
He's not. So,
right.
But see, that's why, to your point, Neil, about Campanile. Listen, it is a roll of the dice, and I understand where we are. We're in win now mode now. It is a roll of the dice. However, this is why he's so intriguing to me, is because, again, we saw Fangio do a lot. We saw him marry the scheme. kind of combine a lot of the concepts that, Josh Boyer / Brian Flores kind of implemented when they were, the head coach in DC. And he kind of integrated a lot of that with what he liked to do, right? So Campanile, again, he's got that firsthand intel on with the two different formats, right? He knows what works. He knows how to deploy the personnel. You know what I mean? So that's invaluable in my opinion. That's what makes him one of the reasons why, and also how the players respond to him. It makes him very intriguing for me. But at the same time, it is definitely a roll of the dice because basically because of the status where we are as a team right now. So, but if I were to make a decision today, considering what's available, I would rather go the route of staying in-house, to Neal's point.
Yeah, the EM, why couldn't they do this, right? Why couldn't they promote Anthony Campanile and then bring a guy like Sean Desai in as a defensive assistant? Where, look, I understand that Sean Desai didn't have a good year with the Eagles, but let's be honest, the Eagles were kind of a mess altogether. He could coach football, man. He did a great job in Seattle. Maybe you can bring him in, with a title that keeps him appeased.
Very good point.
Because you're going to save money. Hiring Campanile as your defensive coordinator versus Vic Fangio. As you mentioned, Fangio was the highest paid defensive coordinator in the game. Like, maybe you just invest a little bit more on that side of the ball. It is what it is, man. I know that I know Twitter's probably burning down. And a lot of times when it's a big name that falls, people, but I honestly think that this team came off last year when it mattered most of being soft, and that's a lot of that's people throw that at us a lot, and I think that has a lot to do. Like, the defense played well, and players that are good played at a high level. But can you name me the guy that in this defense this year under Vic Fangio took that huge step? I mean, we could say Christian Wilkins on his sack production. I guess that is a true statement that Christian Wilkins probably had his best season as a pro. But I think we would all agree that Christian Wilkins was a hell of a good player before this season too. Like, I just didn't see that one player take that gigantic leap. And you want your coaches to be able to do that with players. Look what Kyle Hamilton did in Baltimore under Mike McDaniel this year, right? Like, the guy took a tremendous leap and became an All-Pro.
Well, this is kind of where we part ways, Neal. Respectfully, bro. I think in terms of like players that got better under Fangio, I think really you can make a case. Bradley Chubb was having a career year under him. Well, do you mean established players, or are you talking about young players?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think with the
established players. Are you just mean in general?
Yeah, like maybe Bradley Chubb had his best production in Miami, and Christian Wilkins has best production. But I think that for me, those weren't big surprises because I knew the talent was there, and I knew we'd get some level of production. I just didn't see a guy that came into this season that I was like, you know what? Like, I'll throw Cam Smith out. Like, I thought that that's the type of dude that a guy like Vic Fangio would have, being like, oh yeah, we're definitely have to cut X after the season. We got our guy. We go to. I think we're going to end up cutting X anyway, and we don't know if we have a guy, right? So, I think, look, Zach Sealer played better. Chubb played better. I think Jalen Phillips was on the verge of playing better. And I got to get, obviously Fangio was at the helm when it happened. Part of me thinks that obviously Fangio has a great scheme and is going to help. But I also think that, that damn defensive line was just so damn good. It was going to happen if I was the damn defensive coordinator. But maybe that's underselling what Vic did a little too much.
Well, I think, again, that's kind of where we part ways. I think, in terms of player development, I thought you can talk about Andrew Van Ginkel. You can bring up Jalen Phillips was on a pace to have a career year. Obviously, I mentioned Bradley Chubb, Seiler, Christian Wilkins, and one guy as well I thought was that nobody talked for, not very many people talk about, and they give him enough credit this year. David Long Jr., in my opinion, under Vic Fangio's tutelage, right? I thought he had a career year this year, and he was a very big part of why we were so good for the better part of the 2023 season against the run. You know what I mean? He was fantastic. So kind of, I get your point. But I just think, and again, it might be my bias. I might be a little biased towards Vic Fangio because I'm a big fan. But I just think, Deshaun Elliott as well had a career year. He was basically an afterthought, right?
Yeah, he's getting
passed
paid
off
now.
cast off, comes here, has a career year. Now he's priced himself out of Miami. So I think a lot of players, in my opinion, it's kind of where we part ways. I think a lot of players on this defense got better under Fangio. But at the end of the day, man, again, like I said, it's just not a conversation I wanted to be having this afternoon. I'm a big Fangio fan, but hey, man, appreciate his work and everything he did for us. I think, he did a lot of good things here. It's just unfortunate that we didn't meet our overall expectations due to the rash of injuries we suffered, in particular on the defensive side of the football. But at the end of the day, man, this is a pivotal moment for our franchise, bro. We got so much at stake. Considering where we are, the status, in win now mode, man, they have to get this hire corrected. They have to, bro. So Mike McDaniel's under a lot of pressure to get this right.
Yeah, but you know what I got to get out in front of, because people are going to come out here. See, me and Neal have been talking about this since the beginning of January. I did a 3 takes post on my Patreon on January 4th. This is something I've been talking about for 20 days, right? Now you're going to have people come out here with platforms and they're going to try and make it a conspiracy theory about why he's leaving. You got people out here who are going to say, oh, I know why he left, or I have the truth of why he left, who didn't even know this was a conversation 3 weeks ago when we all three up here. I was having it with EM. I was having it with Neal. Me and Neal were having it with other people connected to the team. This is a conversation we've been having for 3 weeks. And for weeks on this channel, and you got people out here who are going to say, well, I know why he left. I got the truth as to why he left, who didn't even know this was a thing. And they're going to make it a conspiracy theory when we were
they're already doing it. Oh, they're already doing it, bro.
We were already out ahead of this 3 weeks ago and talking about how people don't want to talk about it, but there was a 1 year, the initial conversation with him coming here, there was initially a 1 year deal discussed. That's how this goes back, how far this goes back, and how the Dolphins had been prepared that this could only be. That's why you're not seeing a ton of pushback from them, because a 1 year deal was discussed with him coming in here last year. They knew a 1 year was a real possibility with this guy. Hell, it's a 1 year possibility with this guy if your team is overly successful, because he's seen as a wild card in that sense. And everyone knew where his girlfriend was at. Everyone knew that he was in line to be the DC if that tampering thing didn't happen. Everyone knows what the deal is. So I don't want to hear conspiracies about, oh, it's because Fangio didn't think this team would win, or the quarterback, or whatever. Now, could there have been personality? Listen, again, I brought it up earlier. I posed it to EM and the Dolphins After Dark panel after one of our post-game shows that maybe Fangio because this is how long we've been talking about it, because maybe Fangio saw as a clubhouse atmosphere. He's a defensive genius, and McDaniel gets labeled as this offensive genius, but they're two different clashing personalities, right? Like, Vic Fangio's the godfather. He's the highest paid coordinator, and the basic understanding was McDaniel left him alone. Fangio was not touched. Fangio was left to do his own thing. No one interfered with Fangio, blah, 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 blah. And now you got players coming out doing videos of kicking rocks, and you got Cam Smith putting out emojis of a padlock being unlocked. The players are happy about this too. Like, it goes back to what me and Neal talked about. There wasn't a lot of pushback, and it's because this team understood where their players stood, and they knew this was a possibility last offseason. Again, I have a 3 takes video up on my Patreon from January 4th. So this is, and me and Neal have talked about this publicly on Fin Too Deep for weeks. Me and EM have talked about this on post-game shows. So this isn't something new. That's why you're not seeing us up here panicking, pulling our hair out, or trying to feed you guys false narratives. Because think about this. Once again, Phinside The NFL was out ahead of this.
And reason I thought this was going to happen sooner, to be honest. I thought this was going to happen.
Well, what gave us a little moment of hope, and I know how you feel about Ben, what gave everyone a little bit of sliver of hope was when I tweeted, when Sean Desai got fired, what did I tweet? I tweeted, Sean Desai could come here to Miami. That is if Vic Fangio stays. I even put that in the tweet. Ben, who covered Fangio in Denver, said he's staying, right? And Fangio, and he was right that Fangio, that Peyton wanted Fangio, but Fangio wanted nothing to do with the Denver situation. He was right about that. So he tweets like he's staying, basically gives us confirmation to an extent. Now it's not 100%, but it's more confirmation than we had got from anyone else, to the point Barry Jackson, I sent you the article. Barry Jackson referenced his response tweet to me in an article, like either yesterday or the day before. So that's even guys like Barry Jackson were taking that as some sliver of confirmation, right? I think that gave us all of a sliver of hope. Okay, maybe he is going to stick it out. And it got quiet. But was I not the first one on any platform to point out after we heard after we heard the postseason wrap up, was I not the first one to point out, whoa, those are interesting comments from McDaniel about Fangio, huh?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Everyone brushed over it.
He was very non-committal. He was very
non-committal. And that's something I brought up from the time, and it lined up. Anyways, Neal, I know you wanted to add something. Go ahead, brother.
No, I was just going to say, like, and when you're a fan of a team, sometimes I think, and I'm telling you, anyone in general, not any specific person, but sometimes you put blinders on and try to avoid things that are right in front of you. For me personally, the best leader on this football team, the biggest leader on this team is Jalen Ramsey. That's who I view as the number one dog. If you rank 53 people on this roster, Jalen Ramsey's number one on my list. And when he was on in the public eye with the microphone, he said two things that really caught me. First of all, he said this is the most talented team he's ever been on. And then he kind of talked about, in the one interview where he wasn't ability to shadow as up as it could. That tells me that there was a sense from this defensive backfield with what we've seen from Holland, Cam Smith, and what we've heard from Jalen Ramsey, that they underachieved as a defense. Whether we agree or not, if I'm connecting the dots from what I think's right in front of me, it seems like I'm
Neal, look what Holland's dad said.
Oh,
everybody. He retweeted Adam Beasley, right? Miami Dolphins and Fangio parts ways. Everybody loves the iPhone, but nobody wants the iPhone number one.
Right.
Hashtag upgrade.
So
wow, that's crazy.
That's Jevon Holland's father. FYI.
You know what that tells me? That tells me to what we said
minutes
ago. This is all about adaptability, not just on the football field on X's and O, but how you handle yourself with young men. And I just think there was a humongous.
Did we get another Flores, boys, where the players didn't like him and now that won't be tolerated? They pushed back.
I'm
not talking about. I'm not saying he's as not personable, but not open to the players. Standoffish, because we know, right? Flores was very.
Yeah, I don't like that
with defense too, right?
I don't like that, bro. If
the players getting their kind of, their pull again.
See, man, bro, listen. I don't like that, bro. If that is the case, again, we don't have confirmation, but you're seeing a lot.
I'm spitballing.
Yeah. But you're seeing, I would hope that's not the case, really. Because, I mean, you're seeing, even when they got rid of Brian Flores, you didn't see nowhere near this level of pushback, So I think a lot of what we're seeing, a lot of from Jevon Holland players or whatnot, a lot of that is, they just might be frustrated. They might feel like he abandoned them. You know what I mean? And he again, his introductory presser, he said that he wanted to be here for the foreseeable future, as long as, I quote, as long as the Dolphins will have him. So the players are hearing that and they're seeing him. And again, I know a lot of, our players have a high level of respect for him. I mean, you can't respect Vic Fangio. So I think they had the expectation of him being here for the long term. And then now, boom, after 1 year, right, you just do an about face and say, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. So I think a lot of what we're seeing now is a lot of, they just.
Jevon Holland just reposted too. Cameron Wolf, Anthony Campanile is a rising star coach in the league.
Yeah, I saw that.
Jevon Holland, look at this. Jevon Holland reposted it.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's Anthony Campanile who they're screaming for internally?
Well, look, man, I'll speak for myself personally. I've left a job in my life where I made more money than I've ever made, and I just didn't like it. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Personally, my boss was a good guy. I didn't think he made me better. He didn't challenge me. I kind of was like, you know what, man, like I'd show up, I put in 40 weeks and I clock out, and I'm way too young not to have that type of passion. I think there's something big on the dynamic of being able to relate to young players. What you're seeing is like, look, obviously Harbaugh's a candidate and Bill Belichick's a candidate for these jobs, but like, look what Tennessee did. They went out and got a young guy. I think that the young football coach that can relate to their players. Now, while Mike McDaniel, for me, he has a lot to prove as a play caller this year. I will never take away the way he is able to come into a franchise that probably had one of the worst cultures of all 32 football teams and completely change it overnight. I think it's actually the single greatest thing that he's accomplished. I kind of at times wish that maybe he was a little more demanding it, and we only get to see it, on Hard Knocks. I can't act like I have all the answers, but I do think that promoting a guy from in-house into bunch. I'd rather have Campanile than Brandon Staley 10 out of 10 times. I like, that's where I am. I want a guy that has that fire in his belly, man, and I think Campanile does. One of my biggest 5 takeaways from Hard Knocks this year was that Anthony Campanile is a guy that we want to coach. And when I saw that he was interviewing for the Giants defensive coordinator position, I'm like, man, it would suck to lose that guy. Look, Brandon Staley, I think he's a better defensive coordinator than he is head coach. And I think that a lot of people can say that, but I think these players already know who the guy they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you need to make this hire quick. I think you need to get it done by the weekend. Get this team focused and moving forward. And, I think it's such a great message to send to a team that you are going to be rewarded for, not just players, but coaches too. You want to keep a good talent pool. I think letting Vic Fangio go speaks high volumes of the Dolphins. I think letting Frank Smith and all these guys go look at their next, potential head coaching jobs makes a lot of sense. I think Darrell Bevel turning down OC positions and wanting to stick in Miami. I think there's good here, and there's an ability to really put a stamp on, our franchise. You come in here, it doesn't matter if you're the janitor, you're the defensive coordinator, you're the quarterback, you will be rewarded for your hard work. And we view this as a football franchise, but this is a business. This is, one of the biggest businesses in the world. There's 32 small businesses in this big business. And man, if you put the right approach to your culture, like look at Jalen Ramsey forced this thing to get here. These type of things are very paramount in this Miami Dolphins team becoming what we want them to. After a season where I think, for me personally, man, I'm still licking my wounds, and I'm a little discouraged that, we ended the way we do. This is an opportunity to kind of get in there, take that defensive culture to the next level, like Mike McDaniel did to the offensive.
I mean, could they, what I hope? Like, I'm with you guys. I'd rather go with Anthony Campanile than Staley. Wink is probably the only guy I'd choose over that move. Another move I'm hoping, do they circle the wagon? They interviewed him last time. Did they circle the wagon on Chris Richard? Right? Remember they interviewed him last year.
And they did for the head coaching job when Flores got it.
Yeah. So do they circle back on Chris Richard again?
How long has he been out of football? How long has he been out of football now?
He just didn't coach this year, but he was the co-defensive coordinator for the Saints and the secondary coach the year before.
Pass for
me. Well, me personally, like
I would pass, but do you think they're going to circle that back? Like, because I know I'm hoping Black Monday comes and Robert Saleh gets fired, and all our questions are answered when Robert Saleh gets canned.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they won't leave any stone unturned, because again, this is a pivotal moment for our franchise. I mean,
But I'm going to say, unless it's a wink.
You got to get this right if you're Mike McDaniel, bro. You got to. So
but now you're in a position where, unless it's a wink, unless a Salah hits the market, unless you're going to give, Minter doesn't go and you want to give him an upgrade from Michigan, like Sean Desai. Do we even want to circle the Sean Desai wagon after what we just happened in Philadelphia? I don't know if that's a great call.
It's definitely caused a pause with him.
Or do you look at let me ask you this. Internally, would you rather go with Sean Desai or Ronaldo Hill? I'd rather go Ronaldo Hill.
Mm-hmm.
He's at least been around our players for a year,
right.
et cetera, et cetera. I'd rather go Ronaldo Hill than that. You know what I mean? It feels like we're back to, it's been a year. It feels like
we are, bro. And again, I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but how this is a negative reflection on Mike McDaniel, bro. At the end of the day, you have to. This is year 2 now, and you've got, again, he's kind of like, in a sense, kind of like what Brian Flores was on the offensive side of the
Well,
ball.
he got the guy he wanted. He just didn't think this guy would be, dine and dash, be here for a cup of coffee and maybe some scrambled eggs
that's
and then
fair.
take
That is
off.
fair. That is fair. But at the end of the day, 5-10 years from now, we're not going to remember.
I agree.
You have to you have to get your staff solidified if you're going to set us
what was
up
one
for.
of the biggest problems with Flores? Opposite, couldn't get the
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
down,
So
right?
whatever the reason is, I'm sure they're in terms of personality, we all know they're polar opposites. But at the end of the day, we need the results. I don't give a fuck how you, pardon my language, gentlemen, but I don't care how you do it, but you have to get that side of the ball solidified.
There's something I'm going to show you guys here. Shout out to Native Dolphin fan. He became a member. And John C says, if he is under contract, why are we not negotiating some compensation from the Eagles? Because they just, I don't think they want him to be messy, right? Just get him out of here. So, okay, check this, guys, out. After this was all announced, I want to play this with you. Really, I only care about the first couple seconds here, but I'll play the whole minute clip. But something interesting, and I want you guys to catch it. One of the first things Ian Rappaport mentions here and what potentially went wrong. Listen here.
There was a lot going on here, and I think it's fair to say all year the up and down nature of the defense, and I would also say just the fit with Mike McDaniel and Vic Fangio. There was a lot to like. There was young and old. There was a veteran who can give experience, but I'm not sure this was always as smooth a ride as it seemed from the outside, or maybe as it seemed from Hard Knocks. So Vic Fangio now out as defensive coordinator. Mutual parting does make sense, though, and I don't get the sense this is just sort of lip service. This is real, and the reason why mutual parting makes sense is because it does behoove Vic Fangio to get out now and potentially look at other defensive coordinator opportunities. There's one I could sort of think of that he nearly took last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. Certainly would be one to consider. And then think about the fact that if the Miami Dolphins need a defensive coordinator, which they now do, would make sense for Mike McDaniel to consider one of the top candidates available, and that would be Brandon Staley. Doing this now, ending it, severing the relationship, having it mutual, it all makes sense. All of that is to say, Vic Fangio is now out in Miami.
So there you go. He hints towards there was friction between the two of them. And guys, could this go back? I think this is a better way of conveying what I was trying to say earlier. Could this go back to McDaniel being such a player's coach and his players not being a fan of Fangio and him seeing how he wasn't open to them and stuff like that?
That's why I said I hope that is not the case, because it's one thing to be a player's coach, from a player's perspective, right? Every coach to some sense should be player friendly, and you should have an open door policy to your players at all times. I get that, but this sounds to me, especially coming off, again, not to bring up Brian Flores, but now you have another coach, Vic Fangio, Brian Flores, similar coaching style, similar mentality, similar approach to their players, similar coaching styles, right? It just reeks to me of just an element of soft there, bro. If these players, again, this is all, I'm preface everything off, if this is true, right? Why there was a disconnect is because these players are, they're non-confrontational. They don't like to be, they want a coach that's less demanding of them, at least verbally.
That's not good.
That's not good, bro. That is terrible. I hope that is not the case here. I can't emphasize that enough, bro. So,
hey, Reason, I got to bounce here in a minute. I was just going to say what I think happens is what Ian Rappaport just said. I think Brandon Staley is going to be hired as the next defensive coordinator. If I was the one steering the ship, what I would do is I would interview Brandon Staley. I'd interview Anthony Campanile. And what I would do is I would make it a week process, and I'd keep a close eye on what happens with these head coaching vacancies. And here's why. Let's just say Jim Harbaugh gets that Chargers job and the Falcons go with Bill Belichick. Dan Morgan has a offensive coordinator. I believe it's from the Tampa Bay Bucs that he has his eye on. Just think of all these jobs that could potentially get filled. Could they say, you know what, we're already paying big dollar for a defensive coordinator. Maybe we can bring a guy in like Mike Vrabel if he doesn't go out and get a head coaching job.
That's what I'm hoping. But I think he gets a just job.
Well, maybe it's only a 1-year deal, and that he's going to be a hot name on the next year's market, and it's a one and done. But think about this. He was an NFL linebacker. Getting a guy just for 1 year like him at the helm gives you probably, I think, the best available coach, period, on the open market. but a guy for Anthony Campanile to really learn behind, where it's like you promote Anthony Campanile, you say, we're not making you just the linebacker, you're the assistant defensive coordinator, and Vrabel's got to be down for this. You can't just square peg round hole it. But like, if Vrabel doesn't get a job on this market, man, I will tell you this right now. I've told you this privately. I'd move on from Mike McDaniel for Jim Harbaugh or Mike Vrabel as the head coach of this football team, period. That's Neal Driscoll. So if you could get a guy of that caliber to your staff, me personally, I actually think that's an upgrade to Vic Fangio, where anybody else at this point, whether it's Anthony Campanile, Brandon Staley, more than likely will be a small downgrade, at least at first, until the bullets start flying in September. Especially from a name recognition. But this could be an opportunity for the Miami Dolphins, if they play their cards right, to get a better coach in here. I know that sounds crazy. And to that clip, man, I do think this was mutual. I don't think this is Vic Fangio just saying, like, I'm out. Like, I think the Dolphins were kind of like, don't let the door hit you on the way out, man. Like, you're not a fit here. So fins up, man. Thanks for having me on. Reason I got to go run in here and
hey, salute, Neal. Always respect, bro.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, always good talking to
here,
EM. Reason. But yeah, fins up, man. And God, man, this team never lets you put your head on the pillow and just sleep comfortably, man. They always have a curveball.
No, right?
Yeah, really, yeah.
No, right?
Really.
See you guys.
All right, man. Be good.
Easy, brother.
I mean, to kind of piggyback off Neal's point, I would love Mike Vrabel to take a position here as the defensive coordinator, but
I just don't think it's realistic.
And also you got to, again, Mike Vrabel is one of those hard-nosed type of guys too. You got to ask yourself, is that going to be an ideal fit? Now, again, there's obviously was a disconnect, personality-wise between Fangio and I mean, that's been confirmed in Mike McDaniel. What do you think? I mean, Mike Vrabel is very similar in terms of his coaching style, in terms of his approach, right? Very demanding, very, especially verbally, right? So if these players that we have, Jevon, Holland of the world, and not to listen again, this is if that is true, if they're having issues with Mike Vic Fangio's coaching style, what the hell you think they're gonna have? They're gonna have a huge problem with how demanding Mike Vrabel is. So I would love that. I'm all for it, but you just got to ask yourself, bro, is he going to be an ideal fit culture-wise? The culture that Mike McDaniel seems to be trying to implement, which is, again, that might be a conversation for a whole nother day. But I'm telling you, Reason, if that is the freaking case, bro, again, we'll reserve that for another day. I'll wait before I, go off the deep end. But man, that's concerning for me. That is very concerning if these players are that freaking soft, bro.
Yeah, because even the guy who I'd like to bring in here, but he needs to get fired, is Salah. Same thing. Salah ain't gonna put up with
bro.
Right? He's a hard ass. Usually all the good defensive coaches are hard asses to an extent.
Absolutely,
right?
And you have to be. There can be a healthy dose of everything, right? You can be, again, you should be approachable to your players, right? You should have an open door policy to your organization, but there can be a healthy dose of aggression, of demand, right? You can you can get a healthy dose and incorporate all of those qualities, bro.
Do you think this makes them reluctant to get rid of Danny Crossman so they don't have to fill out two positions right now?
Oh man,
this guy just keeps catching all the breaks like his name's Kit Kat. Because think about that, right? Are you going to pile that on you right now? Are you listen, I would rip the Band-Aid. I would do it anyways. But are they ready for that? Are they ready for multiple searches right now?
Well, I would think if McDaniel was more firm in his, in terms of his status, right? Not just as a head, not just as a head coach, but not only head coach, but his approach with the locker room. And again, I might be reaching here. This might be a stretch, right? It might be a little overstated right now, but I just don't think McDaniel has as firm a grip on the locker room as a lot of people think, and a lot of what's being projected, in my opinion. So I don't know if you're Mike McDaniel, considering his 2 years in the league, considering there's a level of uncertainty surrounding him with the play calling and all of that. I just don't know if his status is firm enough to where you want to gamble. You obviously got rid of your defensive coordinator. Now you turn around and fire your special teams coordinator too. Now you're scrambling now, right? They're trying to find solutions to these openings now. That's a big gamble for him, massive. So I'm all for getting rid of Danny. Don't get me wrong, I'm with you on that. But man, that's a massive. That's a big gamble to take if you're Mike McDaniel, bro. So we'll see how, that's definitely something we all need to be paying close attention to as we move further into the offseason. But man, this is I did not want to be in this place, Reason. I got to be honest with you, bro. Having this conversation today, man. So
we got about 700 people in the room between X and YouTube. So I appreciate y'all. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Yeah, I think it's a position none of us wanted to be, but we aren't thrown back or throwing a conspiracy theories, and everything we're saying is logical, reasonable, and level-headed because we knew this was a real possibility. When other people would respond on X or respond on YouTube and be like, "Oh, that's crazy. Why would you talk about that? Why would you leave after 1 year?" And now you see why.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, right? I asked the question, is he going to be back last year with Omar? Then I did a show about when we got the confirmation from Ben Albright, which turned out to not be true. This has been a topic that, I don't, it's crazy to, be out ahead of something like this that so many people, a portion of this fan base, thought was ridiculous, unrealistic, and not worth talking about. And now we're sitting here. And it's not only a possibility, it's the reality of what we're sitting. It's crazy. It's because
again,
we're in a
bro,
position because of how this team is built.
Yeah. Again, man, there's no time for uncertainty. You need, again, the status of the we're in win now mode. We got so much, right? You got the situation with the quarterback long-term, potentially. You got the coach. You got so many things we have to worry about. And on top of, we still have to dethrone. We got to take the AFC East crown from the Buffalo Bills, right? We got so much on our table, right? And this is just another problem that potentially is added on to what we already have to deal with. And man, you just don't want to be in this place as you don't want to be in this spot as an organization, bro. You don't. So, man, McDaniel, again, I think he is under immense pressure, bro, because he has to get this corrected. Can you imagine? I'm not going to even put that out there, but if things don't go well, to our expectation next year, especially early on, can you imagine the fucking firestorm that's coming, bro? I mean, bro, it's going to be unbearable. It's going to be the worst thing we've experienced since 2019. So, no, you got to get this corrected. You got to get this higher. You have to hit a home run here if you're Mike McDaniel. So,
well, what hurt? It's like, does this put his ass on the hot seat quicker than we thought? Because now this builds the pressure of, we can't afford a hiccup. We can't afford a bigger bump in the road a big bump in the road like we just had. Like, you basically got to pick a guy and it's got to be seamless.
Hang on real quick, Reason. Look, real quick before we get started. Look, man, you see this guy in the comment. He's saying, I wanted a regime change. I never liked Mike McDaniel. What? Bro, look at these idiots. See what I mean? Bro, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry to kind of, to highlight such a buffoonish comment, Reason, but bro, that's freaking ridiculous. I'm a fan of Mike McDaniel, bro. It's just, I can sit up here and critique him and point out areas concerned. We should all be in that position, bro. Take that position with players, with coaches, etc. Every aspect of this organization. If we feel like there's an area of concern, we should be in a safe place to where we can just highlight that concern without having a blowback and a ridicule like this idiot in the chat, bro. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is you have to pick a guy that has a seamless transition, and we cannot afford to take, at the end of the season, it felt like we took one step forward. We can't afford to take two steps backwards now, especially with what we've seen from this offense in those months. I mean, this is going to, if we thought there was pressure on McDaniel to get the offense right, there is even more pressure to get the offense right, because especially if this defense if there's a potential sniff that this defense isn't going to be up to snuff, that offense better be there to make up for it.
Absolutely, 100%. There shouldn't be. He's in a position now to where if there is some regression defensively, especially early on, and I'm emphasizing early on because that could potentially have a snowball's effect on how our season goes, good or bad, right? But if we don't meet expectations early on, bro, there shouldn't be any uncertainty about the offense next year. We should be all of the issues that we've seen from him in year 1 and year 2, they should be eliminated. They're going to have to be eliminated. Because you got to find that you got to overcompensate for what we don't have potentially on the defensive side of the football. You got to find that compensation somewhere. So, yeah, man, I think that man is under, bro. Listen, and I know he'll come out and he'll present to us and the fans and the media and all of that everything is under control. Everything is, bro. Mike McDaniel is under tremendous pressure, tremendous. So, and again. Think about it. He was banging the table for Vic Fangio from day one. From day one, he was banging the table for Vic Fangio. And now they get him. And again, I know Vic Fangio is his own man, and he has, we live in a free country. You can pretty much go in as you please or whatnot in terms of seeking employment, right? But at the end of the day, this is the guy that you sold us on, Mike McDaniel. And I understand he's his own man, but at the end of the day, this is a results-based business. He's gone after 1 year. That does not reflect favorably on the head coach. When you sat here and told the world, I need that guy. So
you ain't wrong. Like, you are not wrong at all. I mean, that's why McDaniel has to get this right. If McDaniel doesn't get this right, and people are going to point back to it and say, well, you had the guy in the building. Why couldn't you make it work? Why didn't you make him happy enough? And it's going to pose more questions when we're looking for answers right now. That's what. And look at this. I want to play this for you. Look at what Drew Rosenhaus said. Check this one out. All right, let me know what you think of this. This is just coming up from Drew Rosenhaus. Look at what he says.
There were quite a few players on the team that didn't necessarily get along with Fangio. And so it wasn't a great relationship with many of the players. There were some guys that loved him, but there were quite a few that didn't. It definitely wasn't a unanimous positive relationship.
There you go.
But I mean, reason you're never gonna be there's never going to be a unanimous with anything. You're gonna have, no matter what walk of life you're in, bro, you're gonna have some people that you get along with, some that you don't. So my question to the ones that where there was a disconnect.
But what if it comes down to the stuff the players were seeing, like Ramsey? What if Ramsey ended up being one of the vocal ones because of how his suggestions were shot down, when I think we all agree, especially with the shadowing, some of his suggestions could have helped us. Do you think that's an issue where it's like...
Oh, yeah, I think all of that is on the table, bro. I do. I think there's an element of a lot of things. I think personality clashes. I think, players philosophically with him might not been on the same. They might not been on the same page or whatnot. I think it's a little bit of everything. But at the end of the day, bro, you push through those type of things. You make it work. I'm not going to let my personal feelings kind of cloud my judgment. And again, I'm just coming primarily from the side of the fence of the players that, maybe had a, somewhat of a disconnect with him. Right. Bro, listen, again, you look at him as accomplished as he is. Can you now let's paint this picture real quick. And again, I'm very intrigued by the possibility of Anthony Campanile, right? Can you imagine, right? We go into next offseason, into next season, right? We don't meet expectations. And again, especially early on. And, the players might not be vibing and, with him for whatever reason. It could be philosophically, it could be personality, it could be it could be any reason, right? If these players are going to rebel, because I think there was somewhat of a revolt here, with Vic Fangio, right? If they are going to turn up on Vic Fangio like that because they have a problem with him, what do you think they're going to do to Anthony Campanile? Can you imagine that? They are going to crucify him publicly and privately. So listen, this issue, and again, man, it's only if this is really, if this turns out to be factual about the disconnect, just rubbing players the wrong way, personality wise, bro, that reeks of, I'm sorry, that's freaking soft reason. And again, Jalen Ramsey, all of these players, not necessarily Jalen Ramsey, because again, he's one of the more accomplished guys. I don't necessarily put that label on him, but a lot of these players, if in fact what has caused them to, speak out, and be on the side of the fence of, just not a fan of Vic Fangio, and it's all because of personality, his coaching style, bro, that is fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry, bro. Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully, listen, man, I'm a hope for I love this team.
I'm for Team Campanile over Staley, though. I will.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that.
If you're going to bring in a veteran, it needs to be those levels of the Winks, the Vrabels, or the Saleh. If he gets fired, it needs to be that type of level. Other than that,
right?
I think it goes back to the point you made earlier. Who understands his personnel better than that man in the building right now on the defensive side after being under Flores, Boyer, and now Fangio? Now, could they come out of left field with Sam Madison getting an interview or something
I don't know
that?
how I feel about that. I'm more of a fan of what I thought Neal brought up a very good point about the intrigue with Campanile, but bringing in a more established guy like Deshaun Desai or, a more accomplished, somebody that's been in that situation a little more than has a little more experience than Campanile, to bring him along as the assistant.
Isn't that Ronaldo Hill though, to an extent?
Could be, yeah, could be. So, yeah. Could be, but yeah, I'm more of a fan, as opposed to what's available as we're having this conversation right now. I'm with you, bro. I'd rather go that route right now, but we'll see, man. It'll be very interesting. It's going to be yet another, like you said, as the Dolphins turn, bro.
What if they call Patrick Surtain, right, and bring him back from right? He's at FSU as a defensive backs coach. I don't know. I'm just spitballing,
Well, man, uncertainty. No matter what route you go, uncertainty.
I think Campanile is going to be the guy if they stay in house.
If you're going to go the route of an inexperienced guy, the safer bet is to go with him because he's got firsthand knowledge of the personnel. He's been under 2 different formats, 2 different applications, right? Brian Flores, Vic Fangio. No, I'm going to lean more towards going in that direction. If you're going to bring in a completely inexperienced guy relative to the position, you know what I mean, as defensive coordinator. But if you're going to go with Wink Martindale, I get it. A more experienced guy, I get it. But again, we talked about this privately reason. Mike McDaniel's not necessarily a fan of that, of that format.
Yeah.
So.
Right. That's why you're hearing Staley's name out there. That's why Saleh would make sense if he was fired, et cetera, right? He's going to run what he wants.
I agree. So,
any final thoughts before we get out of here, bro?
No, man, not much, man. Just, man, I appreciate you having me up. It was cool being up here with you and Neal, man. And, at the end of the day, bro, listen,
for everyone, like there is not a base in terms of news out there already and our opinions and thoughts and potential hires. We'll name a base we didn't cover, right, EM?
100%. It's business as usual on Phinside The NFL. We all know that. The real ones know what time it is. So, yes, but at the end of the day, bro, listen, I don't want everybody listening today, man, to really, at least from my perspective, listen, I was, again, I didn't want to see Fangio go. I didn't want to have this conversation today because of my, I got a lot of respect for what he's accomplished in this league. But at the end of the day, yeah, I have a heightened level of concern, but I'm willing to entertain and give Mike McDaniel the opportunity to prove himself to get this hire corrected, right? I'm not saying move off of fire. There's people out there absolutely saying hit the reset button.
For him, EM.
What's that?
It's like you said earlier. This is a big moment.
Oh, absolutely. But you got people out here already willing to hit the reset button. Already reset, and we hadn't even played it down yet.
Earlier is right. This could make or break him. right? Flores got to 3 offensive coordinators. You're getting to 3 defensive coordinators. This is a turning point to an extent. As you know, that's why I don't know if they want to fire Danny Crossman and pile that on top right now.
Right. But I'm willing to give him the opportunity to get this corrected. And that's the position I'm in. You know, we'll see what that we'll see what that looks like here in the coming weeks and months as we move further into the offseason. But at the end of the day, bro, man, it's as you know, as the Dolphins turn, bro, this soap opera continues and oh man, it's crazy. But anyway, fins up, baby. Y'all know what it is. Appreciate all the support. Y'all showing reason all the support and love, you know, pulling up to the platform. You know, salute to all y'all, man. So fins up, baby, all day.
Over 700 of you in the room today between both platforms. Appreciate y'all coming through, showing love. If you haven't had a chance, me and Dudley Do Wrong, we're up there with Omar Kelly and Alain Poupard today on the All Dolphins podcast. Go check that conversation out if you haven't had a chance. Listen, we're not going to run a fin too deep tonight because of, you know, this. We're going to let this this show
kind of marinate a little bit,
marinate for everyone. So I'll work it out with the guys, see if we can do it tomorrow. If not, well, then I'll figure something out and I'll run a show tomorrow. And then me and Neal will be live Friday around 2 p.m. for Fin Too Deep. So a lot of content coming for you as the Dolphins now embark on a defensive coordinator search. Never a dull moment as a Dolphins fan, that's for sure. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Appreciate all of you for coming through. We are a little over 140 away from hitting 14K. Let's get there. Fins up.
Hell yeah. Salute. Y'all be safe out there.